Turning now to President Trump casting doubt on American elections. This time, he's targeting California's high-stakes race for governor. And while Trump has spent years lying that elections are riddled with fraud, what's most alarming now is that these falsehoods are being backed up by the machinery of the government. Yesterday, a federal prosecutor in California announced investigations into the state's recent elections following Trump's unsupported claims. This morning, California Attorney General Rob Bonta responded with our colleagues on the weekend.
Every count, recount, hand count, court case, and audit has shown time and time again, not just in California, but throughout this country, that there is no widespread voter fraud. It is only a figment of the imagination of Trump and others who follow that conspiracy theory.
And the probe comes as the ballots from Tuesday's race are still being tallied. Democratic candidate Javier Becerra has already advanced the general election scheduled for November. Trump-backed Republican Steve Hilton and Democratic billionaire Tom Steyer are duking it out for the second place spot and a ticket to the general election. Joining us now are Rick Hasen, UCLA law professor and director for the Safeguarding Democracy Project, and Janai Nelson, president and director counsel at the Legal Defense Fund. It's great to have both of you guys with us tonight. Rick, I'll start with you and start right there with those multiple DOJ probes into California's elections. Can you put all of this into perspective for us? How unprecedented is it?
Well, unfortunately, it's not that unprecedented given what we've seen in the last few months. We saw the Department of Justice go into Fulton County, Georgia, seize ballots. Apparently, there was some action in Puerto Rico to look at voting machines. There have been calls all over the country. So this is more of the same. So far, it hasn't amounted to anything, and certainly it puts undue pressure on election officials. But this could just be some posturing to try to make Donald Trump feel happy that the election is being investigated. But in fact, what we're seeing in California right now is par for the course. It takes a long time for them to count the ballots. The game's already over. It's just a question of figuring out who's won. And Donald Trump has no patience. And unfortunately, he's using that time to try to sow doubts about the integrity of the election.
Janai, the reason California's elections usually take this long is largely due to the massive counties with populations that have over, I think, about 5 million people. There's also the fact that an estimated 80% of California voters are cast by mail, and those ballots need to be sorted, validated, counted. So how does that relate to the claims you're hearing from the president right now?
Well, it just shows that these claims are yet another way for him to undermine the integrity of our elections by casting doubt on what are tried and true processes. These are long-standing processes whereby votes that are mailed in are counted. But we know that this president has a campaign against mail-in voting. He issued an executive order that is lawless and that undermines his own actions. I mean, he and his family have voted by mail in recent elections, and yet he is trying to undo the ability of every other American to take advantage of this very important opportunity to access our elections. People with disabilities, people who are elderly, people who live in rural communities. There are many people who are unable to turn out to the polls and need to mail in their ballots. So what we're seeing happen in California is democracy at work, and we have to be patient and let it cook.
But Rick, a question to you. Isn't this incompetence that they are able to poach and they can pounce on it and they can say, oh, this looks like fraud and raise all these aspersions just because it is a needlessly long process? They could modernize. They could make this process better, couldn't they?
Well, first of all, California did pass a law that somewhat shortens the time, but the question is a trade-off. So California allows ballots that arrive after Election Day that have been postmarked by Election Day to be counted. That turns out to be a very small number of ballots. Really, the problem is the ballots that come in the week before the election. And if really we wanted to solve this problem, the California legislature would have to throw a lot more money at it, and that would solve the problem. It's just the volume. Think about this. Los Angeles County is larger than many states in terms of administering elections. There's a ton of ballots to count. Imagine if Los Angeles County rushed through things and didn't check signatures and didn't confirm that people didn't vote twice. I mean, then you'd be hearing all kinds of claims about the potential for fraud. The only reason we have a crisis right now is because it's a manufactured one. I mean, what's the difference? No one is taking office until January. We can wait another week to find out, and it's really just the impatience of Trump parroting these conspiracy theories.
Yeah, so Janai, to that point, I wanted to ask you about the manufactured crisis. And a large part of the way we manufacture crises in this country is through the media, as you see on Fox News and how they're having a meltdown over the elections in California. Take a listen to how some of these hosts have been responding to this situation. Watch.
We, the people, will have serious doubts about whether the will of the voters in California is being respected.
I can't prove it, but everybody watching thinks there's shenanigans when it takes this long.
President Trump, rightly, is calling out Democrats, saying they're probably cheating, trying to steal.
They said it's going to take weeks to count. You know what that means.
Yeah, shenanigans.
Shenanigans.
So this is a network that paid, I think, $787 million for the lies that they spewed around the 2020 election in Dominion voting machines, falsely claiming they helped steal the election for Joe Biden. They clearly have not learned their lesson. They're doing it again, the same playbook. But just give me your thoughts about the fact that they're doing this all over again and what this means for our democracy going into the midterms in the 2028 presidential cycle.
Yeah, it would be comical if the stakes weren't so high, if this wasn't an attempt to truly undermine the integrity of democracy. What we see on Fox News and what we see in the rhetoric of the president and so many others who don't have the patience to watch democracy do its job is called priming the pump. What they're trying to do is cast aspersions on an election that perhaps they fear they may lose, as opposed to allowing the process to work. And there's no reason to suggest that there's anything untoward happening, any fraud. We know that every time they scream fraud, it is baseless. There's no evidence. They try to raise this specter that somehow our elections cannot really reflect the true will of the people. And that is just false. They can't actually produce clear, concrete, demonstrable evidence that there are any issues with that process in California or with the identification processes that we use or anything. And we see that happening through, legislation like the SAVE Act that they were trying to push through Congress. And thankfully, Congress knew better. And this week, had sufficient votes to knock that horrible law down before it could take root and undermine our elections in a true way by disenfranchising millions upon millions of voters. That's where the focus should be, not on a counting process that, again, has been in place for a very long time and has not proven to compromise our elections in any way, shape, or form.
Rick, it's not just President Trump. It's not just Fox News hosts. It's also some 2028 presidential hopefuls who are getting in on the conspiratorial election fraud game, including Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who has been posting about the California elections multiple times on X, suggesting that Democrats are cheating or engaging in fraud. DeSantis obviously is among those who have been floated as a potential 2028 contender. I wonder how you interpret things like this, people kind of jumping into this debate from the other coast. Do you think this is about trying to help the party, trying to get in good with Trump in order to get his blessing? If you were to read the mind of somebody like DeSantis, why do you think it's worth getting involved in this conspiratorial public discourse?
Well, I have no insight into what DeSantis is thinking. So there are a number of things that are possibilities. One is, as you said, he's trying to curry favor with Trump by forwarding the same theories. That's why I think maybe the U.S. attorney in Los Angeles is saying he's investigating. Another thing that it does, and I think Janai just talked about this, is this idea of delegitimizing the outcome of elections that his party loses. So when Republicans win, the election was fair and square. When Democrats win, it's because somebody cheated. That may really matter, because if Democrats take back control of Congress in November, Trump is going to be on the hot seat. He's going to be investigated. There are going to be all kinds of subpoenas and things flying. And the more that he can delegitimize with his base the election of these Democrats, I think the better they're going to be. And Ron DeSantis is fitting into that. And it's unfortunate, because I would hope that some of the worst of the voter fraud lies will disappear once Donald Trump is no longer on the scene. But DeSantis' posts really indicate that this may not be the end of the line for this.
Rick Hasen and Janai Nelson, thank you.